I'm 줄lionbaji니, and I've been really interested in the philosophy of David Hume for many years. In philosophy, there are different temperaments, different characters, different skills. And what makes Hume so extraordinary is he manages to balance those two dimensions of being a good philosopher, which are often in somewhat tension. So on the one hand, there are always philosophers who are looking for that certainty. They're being very rigorous, very logical, and very rational. But in doing so, they often end up being unrealistic. They create a kind of philosophy which is not fit for the world. There's another way of thinking which is much more pragmatic, based on understanding the world as it really is and accepting the fact that reason has its limitations and that not everything can be worked out with logical precision. The danger of that route is you end up being vague or sloppy or not very rigorous. Hume, for me, is the perfect balance of those two philosophical qualities. He's a very, very rigorous, sharp thinker, very, very intelligent, very careful, very clear. But at the same time, he's also completely aware of the limitations of philosophy, that the real world is something which we can never fully understand. And because of that, he's able to reason with great insight. Now, insight is something that in Western philosophy is perhaps not often celebrated, because we think the most important things are just constructing rational arguments and having good empirical evidence. But insight is that philosophical gift to really see what's at the hub of the matter, what is the core of the matter, the heart of the matter. And again, Hume had that in abundance. And also what makes him such a great figure is that he's actually such a humane one on a personal level. He was a nice man, he was popular, he liked company, but he was also very happy to just be by himself sometimes and not see anyone at all. He enjoyed good food, he enjoyed good wine. In essence, he's the most balanced philosopher I think you could possibly imagine. A philosopher of heart and mind, of sociability, and also of private intellect. It's difficult to say what is at the heart of Hume's philosophy, because he's not the kind of philosopher who created a system or a basic, huge concept and then made everything fit it. He used to look at problems as they were. But I think you can see a central idea from which other things can be made sense of. This idea was a distinction he made between what he called the relations of ideas and matters of fact. The insight was this: there's some knowledge we have, and this knowledge concerns what he called the relations of ideas. This is conceptual knowledge, like in mathematics 1 + 1 = 2, or things that can be said to be true because of the meanings of the very words themselves. So in English, for example, a bachelor is an unmarried man. So if you know someone's a bachelor, you know they're unmarried, and you know that as a logical certainty. Hume's point was that this kind of knowledge, which gives us absolute certainty, though, is only ever knowledge of concepts. It doesn't tell us anything about the real world. When it comes to the real world, knowledge of matters of fact, the only thing we have to go on is observation and experience. This means that all matters of fact are essentially uncertain and unknowable in that secure, final sense. Now, he applied that fork, it's often called Hume's fork, between those things we can know for certainty, which belong to the world of concepts, and those things we can only know imperfectly, belonging to the world of the senses, the world we live in. And applying that fork, when he approached issues around metaphysics, ethics, or identity, he always came up with solutions which were as intellectually rigorous as was possible, but being realistic that we couldn't have that kind of rigid logical certainty. Maybe he'd be interested in another topic of identity. Identity, again, Descartes, who came before Hume in Europe, argued that the identity of the self was a matter of there being a permanent and immaterial soul, which existed for all time and was indivisible. And Hume thought that was the kind of conclusion you come to when you approach the question of identity in a kind of a logical and unrealistic way. If you actually examine what makes a person, you don't find any indivisible permanent soul. You find just a sequence of experiences, of thoughts and sensations. So the self is this bundle. And this is a very realistic picture of human nature, one which is largely supported now by psychologists and neuroscientists, but at the time is a very, very radical idea, and it's still one that people can find unsettling. And a third area of his is around ethics. Ethics had traditionally been seen about trying to find the ultimate principles of right or wrong, principles that existed independent of humanity, perhaps forever. And for Hume, it wasn't like that at all. To understand ethics, morality, you had to look at how human beings actually lived. And at the root of ethics, you didn't find any abstract principle, you simply found human sympathy, the desire we have for other people to flourish and for other people not to suffer. So in all aspects of his thought, you see that unifying theme, that he examined all the phenomena of human life as they were, and never pretended that these were things we could come to understand through any perfect lens of logic, or in any way which enabled us to sort of reach an eternal set of truths beyond those of the human world.